Hello. All right. I know you guys are still getting seated, but I think we're going to get started because our time is quickly evaporating. So welcome to growing a server community. We have three pretty large server communities here. We have the Overcast network, we have the Hypixel guys, and we have the Shotbow network down there in the end. So I think it's going to be a great panel. We're going to take your questions via the two microphones we have, and we're also going to be taking questions on Twitter. So I think we're going to go down the line and introduce our Codename. Did you want to say something about last night?
Yep, just welcome to our panel, and thank you all for coming out to Minecon if you've come near or far. And hope you guys all had a great time last night. We did, and a bunch of our friends did.
Yep, we have this awesome picture from last night with some of our staff.
Yes.
Saw a lot of people, handed out some T-shirts, and we're actually going to be giving out T-shirts and stuff after this panel, so stick around if you want to talk to us or get some T-shirts. So let's start here. The Overcast network you may have heard of. We specialize in sort of vanilla PvP with game modes like Destroy the Core, Team Deathmatch, other things like King of the Hill, and lots of different variety of game modes. So we're going to go down the line here, and I'm going to start. My name is MonsieurApple in game, and I'm Tony in real life. And I sort of founded Overcast about 1.5 years ago on Twitch, and since then it's just kind of exploded over the past year, and I'm super excited to be here. So, Yukon, would you like to continue?
Yeah, hello. Yukon AKA I'm a developer for Overcast Network, and I've been a part of their community since the very beginning, I think.
I am Khazhy. My gamer type is khazhyk. It's really easy to remember. I'm an administrator at Overcast Network. I do stuff like running tournaments and managing our staff.
Yep. Hey, I'm Codename B from the Hypixel network. We specialize more in PvP minigames again, but with more of a sort of plugin slant. We use plugins to do special particle effects and spells and stuff, just to make the limitations within Minecraft that little bit more awesome. So we'll go for vanilla texture packs, but use things that people don't normally use within the client to do that. And yeah, I've been part of the team since its inception. In some way or another, I helped design the framework that runs us, and yeah.
Yeah, and I'm Bruce, or Agent K in game. You might have seen me as Agent Kid. I'm the lead network developer. I do the infrastructure for Hypixel. And yeah, as Codename said, I've been on the team for a long time now, about 6 months. Not since its inception, but for a long time. And we love making mini games and making them really big. And that's my job, is to make the infrastructure that allows it to be really big.
And I am... Well, I guess it's going to be you up next here. 1 second.
Is that right? My name is Matt Sundberg. I go by Highlife TTU. I'm the owner of the Shotbow network. I'm mainly responsible for back-end type stuff, scripting, databases, which are painful, and all that other jazz. And then I will hand it over to my counterpart here, who does the fun things.
I'm LazerTester of the Shotbow network. Oh, come on. Please, PK. That's PK Effect, one of our players, and he likes to fish. And so I code for the Shotbow network and kind of made what it is from like a technical coding perspective. And Highlife and I together design a lot of the modes that we have, and then we have a couple of modes that were designed by third parties, but we're known for MineZ, Wasted, Smash, Crafty Bomber most recently, and the upcoming MineZ with guns and all of that. So anyway, sus.
All right, so if you guys want to start lining up, we have two microphones. We have one on the left and one on the right. And we're going to start out with some questions from people here at the panel, and then we are also going to head to Twitter, which is what I wanted to mention next. If you want to tweet us, either at home or if you're here and you want to tweet us, we're looking at the hashtag MCGSC for Minecon Growing Server Communities. So we'll probably take mostly ask questions, but we are also going to take some questions from Twitter. So let's get going here. Over there.
Hi, I was wondering what your opinion was on like inside jokes on a server, because they're really fun once you're part of a community, but they sometimes make it harder to like starting out to kind of understand things. Also, happy birthday, Apple.
Thank you, thank you. It's not actually my birthday. That's an inside joke, which was part of his question. So does anyone want to answer this one?
I think that's a great question, because I think inside jokes can really bring a community together and really make everybody kind of have this sense of camaraderie. But yeah, I think coming into it can be really difficult, and I think a way to address that is kind of one thing that our faction server is kind of, HC Factions, has a lot of inside jokes that stem from the very competitive nature, and everybody spends countless hours doing stuff, and I know a lot of servers have that same structure, like with a vanilla server, you're going to be there, so a lot of jokes come about. We actually have a player-run wiki where there are pages about some of these inside jokes, so you can actually research the history of the server, which then brings people, when they come in, they can read about the history, they can hear about people who used to be terrorizers of, and bringers down of nations, and I think that's a great way to overcome that barrier for new players, and it gives them some way to start involving themselves in the server, and it also makes your server have a rich history to kind of investigate and learn about. So.
All right, let's go to the left.
Okay, as a server owner myself, I currently pay $15 a month for my server, and it's kind of hard coming up with the income for that, and I was thinking of starting a sort of donation thing, which I know a lot of other servers do, but the only reason I don't want to do that is because I think it would make it unfair to other players that don't have the money to donate or simply don't want to.
Yeah, that's actually a fantastic question, mostly because when I started Overcast Network a year and a half ago, it was actually from my own pocket, and we didn't accept any monetary, there was nothing you could buy, there was no way to donate. Shortly after that, though, we actually added our shop page, which was a donation page, and we actually had an amazing influx from the community. You didn't get anything in game from donating other than recognition, but we had an awesome influx from all the users that love to play on our server, and it helped us cover our costs 2 times over. It was actually really awesome to see the dedication that players will have to keep your server running because they love it so much. Thank you.
All right, is Lee kicking about here? It's not Lee Bycroft. If you're here, wave your hand. No? Never mind. Oh yeah, if you can go see Lee, he'll give you a month of free premium for Bycraft as well.
Okay.
For getting you started.
Thanks.
All right, let's go back over to the right again.
If you have a community and you have multiple Bungie servers, how can you connect more than one Bungie servers together?
Well, for all of our systems, we use custom code for that. There are a couple plugins out there, and you can search them up on the Spigot website. And they just allow it to, talk to each other. But even then, you don't actually need that. If you just set them all to have the same configuration so that they go to the same servers, you don't actually need to connect them together. Just have multiple IP addresses on that one domain. So if you have a website address, for example, mc.hypixel.net, just have that connect to the several Bungie cords, and then have them connect to your one server in the back. So that way you can connect multiple Bungie cords together.
One thing I just want to add on that, the Spigot website, I think it's spigotmc.org, or maybe just spigot.org, spigotmc.org. They have a great forum community, and you can always feel free to ask questions there. A lot of us are around there quite often, so thank you.
Thank you.
And then, so we have a question from Twitter, which I think is pretty good. I'm going to read it out loud. It's from @MrMentalMatt, and it is, how would you say is the best way to get your community bigger on a small server/new server, but you don't have the money for advertising? Does anyone want to respond to that?
I think the best thing is to just differentiate yourself and focus primarily on your core players. If you go out there and you're trying to think of a great idea, try to find something that's different and don't be just another another faction server, something like that. Try to find an idea that appeals to players, that is something new to them, and then focus on those loyal players that come and join your server. Put your heart into it and work hard, and eventually those players will tell their friends, and those friends will tell their friends, and you will start to grow purely based on that.
All right, awesome. Let's go to the left.
In your opinion, what do you think takes the most time? Building the structures inside your server, or making your codes for the games in your server?
You know, I think that as far as time, it does depend on the things that you're doing. But from my experience, it takes longer to do the building aspect of it. It can be really hard to build something, because it's easy for, like, you know, as the programmer, you know, it's like it's easy for me to envision what I want it to look like. But building has to be, you know, there's not just one person that can just sit there and build all this stuff, because you're looking at something that, you know, your players are going to want to play. You're going to want to make it interesting, and so you've got a whole team. And I think that gets a little bit more complicated, because you're probably going to work with a team of 5, 6, 7 people, whereas developing, you might be working with a team of 1 or 2. So it's easy to stay on track. So.
Mm-hmm. And to add on to that a bit more, it really, as he said, does depend on what you're doing. Like, if you're making a game that is code-wise fairly simple, like some of our TNT games, that took Codename a few hours to make that game, whereas the building took much longer. Where you have some other games like Vampire Z or Blitz or other games just from our server that are much, much more complex and took far longer to write the code and to debug the code, and that took a lot longer than it did to make the maps. So it really does depend on what the actual game that you're writing or plugin that you're writing is.
Thank you.
Also, to add on that real quick, one thing that's unique with Overcast Network and Project Aries is the community actually makes the maps for the servers. So a lot of the map making is done third party, and the community makes maps for us, and then we add them to the server. So that helps a lot with the maps, and the coding is more for the developers. And that's most time for developers.
Yeah, as Yukon was getting at, getting your community involved to help out, because if they love your server, they will be willing to help out. Let's go over there, right?
If you want to start another faction server, what would you recommend to differentiate yourself from the tons of other
Don't start one would be my
Interesting Fish. There's a plugin on the Spigot website made by a very talented developer called Interesting Fish. No, I'm just kidding. It's my plugin.
You know, it's funny that you asked that, and just a little anecdote from me is that I started, my first server was a faction server, but it was called Hardcore Factions, and what I did is I played on what would call a death ban server, where whenever you died, you were banned for 5 days. I mean, it made the entire experience just incredibly thrilling. You were shaking after you were in a battle because you knew that if you died, you're not playing until next weekend. But that's what I did. Is
Parents loved it too.
Yeah, but that basically I found that and I said, well, what if I bring those two together? And you can do the same things. Look out there and look at all the vast open source plugins out there. If you're not a coder, you can still combine bunches of different plugins to create unique experience without actually having to code anything yourself.
All right, left.
When you're just starting a Minecraft server, like just out of the box, like what host do you recommend using?
If you're just starting, I'd probably recommend using one of the many game service providers because getting your own server from an actual server company is probably way more than you need with that small player base. There are a lot of companies out there, and my only recommendation would be that you are willing to pay a little bit more than the cheaper packages, because with that comes better support and better things, because you'll see companies that have way cheaper prices, but then you're also lacking on support or they're overselling their servers. So I'd say don't be afraid to pay just a little bit more to get your server off the ground.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say here as well. We use MC Pro Hosting, who their main objective is to have really good customer support. And if you're needing like help getting set up, I would try them, see how you find them, just for a month or so. And if they work for you, then yeah, they've been really helpful for us.
I think we're going to field another Twitter question here. This one is from Taigo ACS 1298, and he asks, I am a server owner and I nearly stopped my server twice because of demotivation. So what do you suggest I do?
Demotivation is a huge thing because you're dealing with, I mean, you know, as server owners, we're in charge of anywhere from, you know, 5 players' experiences to hundreds of players' experiences. And when they're not having a good experience, then they let us know, don't they? And what I do personally to kind of get over demotivation is I step back and just kind of let the server run itself for a bit, you know, and even if they get mad because of it, but I try not to make decisions when I'm feeling really down and demotivated because then I'm probably going to make the wrong decision, and just kind of reassess and say, hey, why did I make this server? Didn't I make this for fun? So why am I not having fun? And just kind of look at that and then figure out, okay, what can I do to have fun again? And maybe go peruse the Bucket forums and look for a new plugin or something. Just try and do something to break it up and make it fun again.
Yeah, great. Right, I believe.
Yeah. How do you guys come up with new ideas for minigames?
Well, there's a very broad spectrum of ways to get ideas. For us, Hypixel himself provides a lot of ideas, and we look to the community a lot for ideas, because for us at Hypixel we have our forums, and we have a forum just for new ideas for new minigames or add-ons for old minigames. So just talk to your community, because your community members have tons of ideas, just even in-game. Just say, hey guys, what do you think I should do to make the server better? What kind of new game should I make? And they will respond. They will give you tons of ideas.
Yeah, probably better than your ideas. It's been that case in our community.
Let's head to the left.
I know hackers can be kind of an annoying setback, especially for PvP servers. Do you think that there's anything that Mojang could do to counter that, rather than always being the responsibility of the server admins?
Well, to be honest, there are a couple things that Mojang could do, but they've already obfuscated the code. It's already very difficult without things like MCP to, make it, well, there aren't many things they could do to make it difficult to modify the game. And so from their perspective, they could implement something like Valve's VAC, but even then it's supposed to be a sandbox game where everybody can do what they want. And limiting players like that. There are servers that use hacked clients that, people are encouraged to go around and fly around using fly mods or just mess around, and it keeps the sandbox feel to it. So I don't think Mojang should or is going to apply limitations like that. They might ban an account for something very, very serious like legal stuff, but beyond that, I don't think there is anything that they should do. It should be the responsibility of the server, because it is the server owner's decision. We make the rules on our own servers, so we should decide what their punishment is, not Mojang.
And I think, as Agent K was getting into, I think if they did make anything to limit hacked client capabilities from like a client-side perspective, it would impact modding directly and the ability to mod. And so I think that it's a trade-off that we have all this wonderful content being made by the community who's passionate, and we also have all this content being made by the community who's malicious. And I think as server owners, what we can do is we can really work on trying to dial in anti-cheat things, and we can even, I don't know of any like major collaboration that's been taking place on trying to improve those things. I know always No Cheat Plus is working their tails off, but I'd like to do a little bit more in that with trying to improve all of those kind of anti-cheat things, and that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we also have a very strong moderative community in our server. A lot of our community members apply for a position on our server, either helper or moderator. We have, what's the number, last count?
I think it was somewhere around over 100 helpers and at least 4 dozen moderators on our staff, and they're on day and night, and they are, we have a couple of them here with us down there. And they help, So
look to your community for help as well.
Yeah, I think that talks a little bit about our next question from Twitter, which is from Blake Key, which says, what is a good strategy to find trustworthy staff members early on to build a team that will stick with the server?
Look at how they act in the community. It's one of the big things. Is if they're really mature in the community and are helpful to people, they're probably going to continue that as a moderator. And you just gotta look at the community and also have other moderators suggest people for you and just give suggestions to it.
there are a lot of really, really nice people out there that will just out of the goodness of their hearts or for whatever other reason, just help out other people. And those are the people that we look to become new moderators. Moderation is really, it's something that you can give to anyone that you trust. It's not something that is, you know, an exclusive skill. It's just if you have friendly, nice people that really do want to help out, that's a good candidate for a moderator.
Let's go to the guy in the Overcast shirt on the right.
Hi. How do you get that cool plugin that makes it so that you can have the 1.6.2 guys with the 1.6.4 guys with the 1.7.2 guys? What plugin is that?
We're going to field this over here, I think.
Yeah. It's actually not a plugin. I wrote a large patch to Bungee Cord that that helps sort of allow 1.7 clients to work with 1.6 servers. And I haven't decided yet if I'm going to release it, but essentially it's a Bungee Cord translation thing. So yeah, sorry, that's kind of not very much information, but let's go to the left.
Good afternoon, Highlife and Laser. Okay, so I know all of you deal with scalability, and Bungee is a big part of that. I'm too tall for this mic. What I'm wondering is, I just recently saw, I guess like 2 months ago, that Shotbow is making it so that their servers can go off and on depending upon the quantity of players on the network. Can you talk a little bit about how that helps your bottom line in terms of overall cost of running a network? Do you actually turn off physical machines, or are you just killing the threads?
It really is just more about load balancing. So, you know, if you try to have a dedicated box for every single game type that you have, then you're basically going to be paying for things that you're not necessarily using. So by spinning up, basically by sharing, I would say everybody here is using dedicated boxes. So the power of having a dedicated box is that we have full control over it. And so we're writing scripts in the back. I'm sure all of our processes are probably fairly different, but also very similar in the fact that we have boxes sharing different games as they're needed.
Minecraft for players to play. And I was wondering, is there any way that I could get one of you to even take a look, or like, I don't know, like, is there any way I can actually contact a server and have them look at the work you've done?
You can tweet it to my Twitter, and I reply to every tweet if it's, you know, a question or something. So it's Vlad to be here. That's VLAD to be here. Yeah, it was funny at the time. And I guarantee that I'll take a look at that if you like, or if anyone else wants to volunteer.
Yeah, I mean,
there.
you can pop on our, we've got a Shotbow subreddit, reddit./r Shotbow. You can just shoot it over in a PM on there or on our forums. I mean, yeah, we're happy to always take a look. And you know, if you're just looking for a little bit of feedback, or if you're looking to, like, you need somebody to host it or something. I mean, yeah, we've got a few that we host that are made by other people, and we're happy to talk with you about it and even if you just want me to be like, no, this is terrible, fix that. Like, I love doing that.
I bet you do.
One thing I would add to that is just like in a general aspect, most all of our servers have either a subreddit or a forum, and I think we all have Twitters and stuff. So if you reach out to us, we're likely to respond. And if you don't hear back to us, it's probably because our servers are on fire or they're crashing or something. But if you don't hear back from us, look to our communities. I'm sure all of our communities are very receptive to trying things out and giving feedback to other server owners. So, yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Left.
how do you deal with negative comments on the server forums?
Well, it really depends on, I'd say, the type of negative comments. I mean, there's always negative feedback, like, you know, criticism, for example, of something saying, hey, I don't like this, can you change this? And, you know, for that we always try and listen to it and, you know, judge how much of that kind of feedback we're getting from players. If everybody is complaining, hey, we don't like this, then we'll likely change it or entirely scrap systems. We've actually gone and written games and said, you know, players, how do you like this? And they said they didn't like it, so we just scrapped the game and rewrote it completely. And we try to always accept criticism like that, but then there's negative, like, you know, I hate this server sucks. And for those players, you know, you're always going to have players like that. And if they're just saying that to you, then really just accept that everybody, like all the servers, we all receive negative criticism like that. We all receive a lot of it. And even if you have a really supportive player base, you're always going to have some people that just say, yeah, this server sucks. And a lot of the time, they don't mean it. They're just trolls, and so you should ignore them. For us, we mute them. We have a muting system. Our moderation staff helps a lot with that. Just, you know, eliminating spammers and people that are just there to just, you know, make a negative feel. But other than that, you know, negative criticism that is, you know, good for you, rather, to help improve things, we always try and accept that.
I just want to add, there are always going to be trolls. There are always going to be people that are just trying to be mean. But there are a lot of people that might come across as mean, but do have legitimate points. Maybe they're just frustrated. Try not to take things personally. If someone is complaining about something, that means that there is a way to improve your community. So really think on that feedback and try to ignore it if it's not the nicest thing.
Let's go to the right.
Hi, this is addressed to the Shotbow guys. I was wondering, what's the hardest part about maintaining / managing the Mindsy community?
Should we go? I think Mindsy is very unique, and I'll be brief here because I want us all to be able to talk in a more general sense. But for Mindsy, it's been around for over a year and a half now, and so you've got a community that's been entrenched for a long time, are very change averse. Also, they have that nostalgia of when they got back on it in June of 2012, and they're like, oh, I want that feeling back. And so it's a challenge of trying to release new things that keep them happy, but in the same sense realizing it's an old game, and old games, it takes a lot of time to breathe life into an old game. So you have to be very, very creative. And thanks for the question.
No problem.
Thank you. Let's go to the left.
No, let's not.
I'm not allowed to ask my question. This is mainly for Shotbow guys, but everybody that runs large networks. How do you deal with denial of service attacks? And you expanded a little bit on the trolling. How do you deal with trolls and denial of service?
Denial of service, there's a variety of ways to deal with that. You can do, from the more technical perspective, you can do packet scrubbing. You can have just front-end hardware dedicated to denial of service attacks. And then there's other strategies like null routing IPs, just, you know, to try and alleviate the strain on the actual boxes. And beyond that, you know, that can only do so much. And all of us have gotten hit by, you know, massive denial of service attacks. And
most
for those
players have too.
Yeah, and for those, you know, you just have to batten down the hatches and, you know, just go and deal with it, really. It's going to cause lag, it's going to cause downtime, but the DDoSer will get bored and they'll move on eventually. And for trolls...
Yeah, I mean, as far as denial of service, just kind of sticking on that, we host our services through Staminus Networks. They've got a really good denial of service protection, and they have Intrepid as their like Minecraft server arm. And so, I mean, if that is an issue that you're struggling with, it's serious enough that you want to address it, you can always look into hosting your server with Intrepid, and that kind of, I mean, it doesn't negate it entirely. But trolls, I think we go back to the same feedback. You know, if it's negative, you can judge whether it's malicious or whether it's constructive, and go from there. If it's constructive, you know, reflect on it. If it's negative and just malicious, then just, you know, delete it, mute them, and move on.
Thank you.
Yeah, to the right.
Hey guys, in general, from a technical perspective, for a small server, what would you suggest are some of the best ways to keep memory usage down? Because that's the problem I seem to be having the most right now.
For one, I would recommend you run Spigot as opposed to Bucket if you're running plugins. They've got a booth downstairs and stuff. You should check it out if you haven't. But they've made a lot of improvements, and we all, I think, use Spigot. Yeah?
Yeah, and for us personally, we use all custom code pretty much, and we optimize greatly. And as Codename said, Spigot is great on memory usage, and they have a lot of configuration options regarding what things you want to load, what things you don't want to load, and that helps with memory consumption a lot. Like our main lobby that holds 400 players, we use only a couple gigabytes of RAM, really. And that's just after a lot of optimization on our part and fine-tuning of Spigot's configs.
And just to jump in very specifically on that, if you are a small server and you're seeing a lot of memory usage, that typically comes from entities. So you're looking at mobs and animals as your big two things there. So get a plugin on there that will tell you how many entities you have, and you'll probably be pretty surprised. And with Spigot, you can go in there and fine-tune those. So start lowering those limits. As long as you're not too aggressive, your players normally won't notice a huge difference, and it'll help greatly.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're going to head to Twitter again. This question is from MikeyX3000, and they asked, how important is it for you that games should be fair for every player, even if one is a donator and another isn't? Anyone want to field this?
I think that's vital for player experience, because nobody wants to play against a player who just showed up that day and because they had $5 in their pocket is going to be able to kill the other person with 2 strikes of their sword instead of 3. And so it's definitely a huge balance, and that kind of goes back to the very beginning about the covering server costs. I think there are places that are really aggressive about that, like trying to get money from players, and I think it's important to really assess your priorities when dealing with money, because that's a real thing you've got to deal with if you're trying to grow your server, and just make sure that my perspective on it is just always make sure you're coming from a good place if you add something for purchase, and just like think, okay, well, is this to make sure that we're running, or is this to just try and squeeze wallets? Because that's not, your players will figure it out pretty quickly. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, what we do is we tend to, rather than giving them an advantage, we give them some cool stuff. So like maybe some enchanted armor if it was a blitz game, some better starting kits, maybe some snowballs, just something fun to make the game a bit more interesting for a donator, but without making them extremely overpowered.
And for our VIP rank, for example, a lot of what we give is cosmetic stuff, and it's things like green name in chat, the ability to shoot a firework in the lobby, the ability to join servers that are full that don't necessarily impact the actual gameplay, and in the long run, they get more coins, but right there and then, it's just 2 people against each other, and they're fairly balanced. And that's, our biggest, consumable, or not even consumable, because it's a lifetime purchase. And, that's our way of keeping it fair, because right then and there, even if somebody joins the server that day and buys VIP that day, they're not going to be any more powerful than other people.
Were we on the left next, I think? Yep.
I have a very small homemade server. I don't use any hosting. I just turn a spare computer into a little homemade server, and I can figure out how to put mods on it or plugins probably. But it took me, I tried a little bit, but I can't find it. How can you get mods? Like, I'm trying to get Mine and Blade on my server. It's a mod. I'm trying to get that on, but how do you get past that? You have to have the client and server have the mod. How can you get past those? Is there any bypasses or anything?
Well, from the modding perspective, if you're running an actual mod that requires a client mod, like any sort of mod where you're going and actually editing the Minecraft server jar, not plugins or Bucket or Spigot, you're going to have a client mod that works with that. And some mod packs or some individual mods, they are compatible with not requiring the client mod, but a lot of them are, because if it adds new blocks and the other clients, the regular old vanilla clients, they don't have that block, they can't handle the data from it, so it requires the client mod. And to get around that, there isn't really too much of a way to get around that issue, actually. That's one of the things that the modding API is going to help a lot with when it finally comes out. And yeah.
And especially with Sarge now on the team, that dude is awesome. So I'm excited for him and Grum to be working on that modding API.
I think we are all extremely excited for you and for us with the modding API, because being able to control the client GUI and do all this stuff from an official like Mojang standpoint is going to be awesome for both you and us. So once that modding API, it's going to be awesome. So let's go to the right.
I run a small survival server, and I've been using Bucket, but sounds I might go to Spigot now. And I try and keep it as vanilla-like as I can, but I also want to see if I can get a back-end plugin where I can track what people are doing. So if someone like griefed a building, I can find out who did it and take the appropriate actions. Is there maybe a plugin that you can recommend?
I think that I would just recommend you check out the Bucket forums, because there's a huge variety of logging plugins. I know Logblock's one of them. There's just a ton of plugins that you can find on the Bucket forums, or I think it's plugins.bucket.org, and those actually, they all work with Spigot, so yep.
Yeah, you'll need a database setup for that kind of level of volume of data, but you can either set that up on like one of your spare computers if you have one, or there's very affordable options out there. So. Yeah.
I host on pro hosting, Minecraft pro hosting, so I think they have a MySQL with it. So.
Yep. So you're sorted come with it. You just have to look on their forums, or not their forums, but their support website. It has instructions on how to set up stuff with MySQL right there.
Okay.
To the left.
When dealing with donations, is it better to use monthly or like unlimited days? And if it's monthly, what would be a good price for an unlimited one?
I can go for this. I think really it depends on how much you have to offer with each of your individual ranks is how you get a price point set, because if you're offering like $30 for like a star or something, you know, obviously that's not going to have value. But if you have a lot of offers for a package, you can sort of base your price point on how much you are going to give the user in return. Did that fully answer it? All right, let's go to the right.
Hi, I've been coding since '81. I've been in the professional software industry for 25. I've been doing games for 12 professionally. I think this is an amazing meta community here. I've never seen so many young entrepreneurs, coders, designers, etc. I'm mostly interested in what is your outlook on this community? Where is this going?
I actually got into it. I've been a developer for a few years, and I actually got into it because I kind of started losing my steam working for the man, and just kind of like, I need something to reignite that passion that got me into coding in the first place. And so I was like, oh, Minecraft, that's cool, and started writing mods for it, and I've been just blown away because I only showed up on the scene like a year and a half ago, and it was just, I mean, it's just. I'm astounded by it, and I can't wait to see what this shapes in the future. With, I mean, so many young minds just gaining the managerial skills, the organization, the planning, the debugging, the testing. It's amazing.
All right, we are actually unfortunately out of time, but we'd love for you to stick around. We're going to be here for about an hour or so if you want to come ask us questions that you didn't get to ask during the panel. We have free t-shirts. I know Hypixel has some free stuff. So come on up, ask us questions.
Thank you for coming. We got to go out. Out. We got Minecraft next.
Oh, we're going outside.
We got to get out of here.
Get us outside.
We'll
so yeah, head outside.
We love you all. Thank you for coming.
So yeah, head outside.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
So yeah, head outside.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.